Maul, Lord of Mandalore. This is the fourth video, I believe, in my Leaders of Mandalore series, covering, believe it or not, Maul. And why I don't think that his rulership of Mandalore was really all that bad. I mean, it's not great, but certainly not as horrible as it's made out to be, in my opinion. And to be clear, this video will only be talking about Maul's time as leader of Mandalore, not so much his other adventures. I'm also not going to be super talking about his war against Bo-Katan, at least the original war, Season 5, because in my opinion, that blame lies more firmly on Bo-Katan than it does on Maul, and I'll be talking more about it in her video than here. So, Maul's interactions with Mandalore start off early on in Season 5. Well, not early on, almost near the end of Season 5, but early on in his arc, where he gets rescued by Vizsla, and Maul then immediately recognizes that Mandalore will be a useful base of operations for Shadow Collective, because its people are loyal and honorable. And Maul offers to have Vizsla rule Mandalore while he controls the underworld beneath Mandalore. And I think that this shows how Maul wants to structure his leadership of Mandalore. He wants to have a Mandalorian in charge of Mandalore itself, acting as the leader of Mandalore, the public face of his operation, while he just works off in the shadows beneath Mandalore, setting up his organization, setting up his Shadow Collective. Which is effectively what he ends up doing, just with Almec instead of Vizsla. But what I think this really goes to show is Maul's leadership of Mandalore is not very direct. He does not really rule Mandalore. He delegates that to people who are Mandalorians, who will try and do what at least they think is right to lead Mandalore. So he's not trying to rule it and stomp on it with an iron fist. He's perfectly fine with letting someone else take the actual leadership part of the role of leader of Mandalore, while he just delegates it to them, make sure that they're not, as long as they're not getting out of line, he doesn't really care what they're up to. Maul then constructs a plan on how to take over Mandalore, which, well, I believe I mentioned in my Pre-Vizsla video, we never really see what Pre-Vizsla's plan was. It's heavily implied that Pre-Vizsla wanted to do a far more of an all-out war against Mandalore than Maul ended up doing, which was fairly bloodless. Not completely bloodless. There are definitely some people who die in their attacks, but the vast majority of them don't die, and we frequently see the Death Watch coming in to save people before they're about to be killed. And because, of course, the whole point of this plan is the Death Watch are being saviors, and this is all coordinated, it implies to me that Maul's plan is to not kill people of Mandalore wherever possible. And even one of the spots where you'd think is one of the more likely times for people to die, which is when Savage breaks into the bank vault, and we cutscene off with Savage revealing himself with his lightsaber as some guards are around him. And I forget if we actually see the fight, but certainly when we then later cut to the escape from that bank vault, what do we see? There are no corpses lying around on the ground, which implies that the guards there must have survived and crawled away and presumably called in the assistance. And then again, during the actual escape there, nobody actually dies. Savage tosses someone off the edge of the building, but not hard enough that they actually fall, just hard enough that the security guards are able to catch him and catch the thrown person, but it slows them down enough that he's able to get around the corner and engage with Pre-Vizsla. Similarly, on the docks, we never see anybody die there. In fact, what we see is all the people who are working on the docks get locked up in the shipping crates to be freed by the Death Watch. The only time that there's people who definitively die, in my opinion, are during the Black Sun raid on the streets, in which we see a few people get shot down, which I believe are all security guards. I'm not 100% on that. But regardless, it is certainly not a very bloody coup. They are certainly capturing and causing damage to Mandalore, but they aren't doing as very much kills. And I mean, that shows that Maul, at least, does not want to hurt the people of Mandalore. Because, he wants them to be ruled. He wants them to follow him. He wants them to be loyal to his soldiers. And you don't need... And the more people who are dead, the less people who can do that. Then, of course, he gets imprisoned by Vizsla, but he manages to break out. And during this escape, Savage does kill, I believe, 2 Mandalorian warriors, at least that we see total. And it's implied that those are the only ones that die, because otherwise people would have been contacting to Vizsla about Maul's escape earlier, which they don't do until they're right outside the main, the throne room area where Vizsla is, and the guy who's there does not die because Savage just tosses him towards Vizsla and he stands up later. Then, of course, Maul challenges Vizsla to honorable combat in the Mandalorian way, where anyone can issue a challenge to a leader of Mandalore for control, a fight to the death. And, well, of course, Maul wins that fight. And then he blames Satine for killing Vizsla, which is a bit dishonorable, but, eh. And then he plants Almec now as leader of Mandalore. And Almec is admittedly not the greatest person to be leader of Mandalore, but, he's also not... He seems to legitimately want and care for the people of Mandalore, which, especially if you're just looking at what he's done in Season 5, he says what he was doing during Season 5, he says what he was doing was for the people of Mandalore. And Satine does not refute that, which implies to me at least that he's telling the truth there. His actions may have been misguided, but he does not want to cause harm to people of Mandalore. And that is who Maul chooses to place in charge of Mandalore. Now, admittedly, he didn't really have much choice, given he didn't want to plant anyone from the Death Watch regime in charge, and didn't want to plant Satine in charge because he was about to kill her. But, planting Almec he's a pretty good job. He has experience, he knows what he's doing, and he's just, generally speaking, a good leader of Mandalore. Although, of course, Bo-Katan has also defies him and declares war against him, effectively. But, like I said, that is more for Bo-Katan's video, because she's the one who's breaking Mandalorian custom by not bending the knee to the person who beat her previous ruler in honorable combat. And she's the one who's responsible for all the damage that, at least that initial war, causes. I'll get onto the Siege of Mandalore war a bit later, but I don't think that you can really blame Maul for that. He did not want to be fighting Bo-Katan. He didn't want to be fighting Vizsla either. He only chose to fight Vizsla because Vizsla betrayed him and locked him up. He would have been perfectly fine with Vizsla being the Prime Minister of Mandalore, and that would be fine. But no, Vizsla chose to fight him, so Maul had to kill Vizsla. Maul then allows Satine to escape, which does cost a fair few lives during this escape attempt, which, not the greatest plan there, because this is very much Maul sacrificing the lives of Mandalorians for our personal gain. And I believe it is basically stated that Maul chose to let them flee. And it wasn't just, oh yeah, they're fleeing, oh well, we need to capture them. And several Mandalorians do, of course, die in that fight, so that is not a great look on him, but that's really it as far as bad leaders of Mandalore vibes go in Season 5, in my opinion. He lets a few people die for his own personal gain, which was also in the middle of a war anyway, so, Bo-Katan was actively fighting him, so they thought they would have died anyways, so it's not even massive extra loss there. But what Maul also recognizes is that because of Satine's neutrality in the Clone Wars, when she sends out the message to Kenobi, she's only going to be able to, or rather, only Kenobi will be able to come. They won't be able to send in reinforcements from the rest of the people of Mandalore, or from the rest of the Republic. There won't be a clone invasion. It'll be just Kenobi, and Kenobi Maul can handle, as is quite easily shown in the show itself. As Maul is definitely capable of dealing with Kenobi. And, well, yes, Maul then captures Kenobi and kills Satine off. And that's really it for Maul's time as leader of Mandalore in Season 5. There's one other little thing. Satine does tell Kenobi, before she realizes that he's Kenobi, that, are you here to do more of your master's bidding? Implying that Maul has been having Satine tortured a bit, which is a bit strange. Like, we never see it, of course, but why would Maul be doing that? He has no value in torturing her, at least before Kenobi shows up. I don't know why Maul would be doing that. Anyways, yes. Then, of course, when Obi-Wan is escaping, Bo-Katan tells Kenobi to bring down the wrath of the Republic upon Mandalore, which never happens. Well, kind of happens, not because of this request. So, that is once again on Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan is the one who wants to try and escalate this war. Bo-Katan is the one who's causing all the problems here, not Maul. Then, in the Son of Dathomir comics, which, yes, unfortunately I have to talk about those, Maul is, of course, imprisoned by the Separatists, and then the Mandalorians form a little escape assault to try and break him out, which goes well, and they manage to see. What this shows is that, despite Maul's relatively short time leading Mandalore, the people of Mandalore are loyal to him. They follow him. Which means that at least the warrior caste of Mandalore believes that Maul is the way to go. They don't just see Maul as an outsider, as someone who's not going to be trying to help them out, trying to make them good. Now, as I mentioned a bit in the Almec video, this could easily be there's a power struggle on Mandalore, and they're just trying to deal with it however they can. And Almec and Saxon decide, you know what? We're going to go free Maul. We're going to rescue Maul. Probably, actually, given the events of Shadow Lord, with the backing of Rook Kast going, we need to rescue Maul, because Rook Kast is a ardent Maul believer. So, if Saxon and Almec are at odds and going, okay, we need to have someone that we can both follow in charge, and then they go free Maul, that still shows that they both respect Maul enough to be their leader, right? I think that no matter how you look at this, they are freeing Maul because they believe Maul is a good person to lead Mandalore. Maul's forces do suffer fairly extensive losses during these fights, but that's not really Maul's faults, really, because they're just being chased down as they're trying to escape with Maul. So that's not because of Maul's plans that they suffer their losses. And during the second fight at Ord Mantell, while they do suffer, again, extensive losses there, which was more Maul's plan to go and capture Grievous and knock out the Separatist command structure, deactivating the droids, worked well and probably worked better than if they'd actually gone to war properly. Like, if he'd just been present on the front lines. I don't know. So, yes, Maul's forces do suffer sensitive losses there, and they suffer more losses when Jedi attack their asteroid base, which, again, isn't really Maul's fault. They keep suffering losses, but these losses are more, I think you could argue they're because they have Maul as their leader, but not because of Maul's actions that these losses are happening, really. They are being constantly attacked. And the Mandalorians stay loyal to him through this, because he is leading them through the war. He is fighting alongside them. He is developing a plan to win this war, and it is working, somewhat. And during the fight, I believe, on Ord Mantell, Saxon is about to die, he tells his men, "You fought hard, men. It has been an honor." And when the Jedi attack the Mandalorians, and lots of them do end up captured there, but we never really find out what happens to those ones, which is a bit interesting. I mean, it's entirely because of the weird nature of, well, some of Dathomir, but also the cancelled Clone Wars arcs. But it's reasonable to assume that Maul would have tried to rescue them. And also, we don't really know what's going on there. I think it is very much reasonable to assume that Maul broke them out later on, because he does have a sizable army during the Siege of Mandalore, and he has shown to be willing to break people out of prisons to help his cause, especially when they just broke him out. I think it's very reasonable to assume he did free them later. Then, of course, we reach the Siege of Mandalore itself. And during this, Maul tries to get Kenobi and Anakin to attack with a Republic force. So we bait Bo-Katan into going to talk to him, which admittedly is not Maul's greatest point as leader of Mandalore. Because now, yes, he is very much trying to bring down a Republic army upon Mandalore. Which is not a good look for him, I will fully admit that. But it's also not a, I don't know. I can't really defend that. Because he is very much bringing down a war to Mandalore. A war which the Mandalorians do lose, even without the full might of the Republic fleet that Bo-Katan went to get to coming here. It's not even the full 501st that came that was with them, because they split the 501st, and then the entire 212th as well goes back to Coruscant. I don't think I've really talked about how much of the 501st got split off to go to Mandalore. But even if we assume it's half of it went to Mandalore, even 2/3 of it went to Mandalore, that's still not a lot of the total forces that were present that Bo-Katan went to grab. Yeah, Maul might have overplayed his hand here, but also Maul was getting fucking desperate here. Because he's seen that Palpatine is about to rise into the Emperor. He knows that shit is about to go down. He's doing whatever he can to stop the rise of the Empire, or at least to weaken the rise of the Empire. And well, given that under Imperial rule, Mandalore gets kind of fucked several times. Which is admittedly at least in part because the Empire was able to be on Mandalore, having already beaten Mandalore at the start of it, due to Maul's trolling of the Republic. But even ignoring that, the Empire almost certainly would have been able to come over and beat up Mandalore if they wanted to. And Mandalore does get fucked on the Empire. Maul trying to stop the rise of the Empire would have fairly indirectly been very beneficial to Mandalore and the people of Mandalore. Even if short-term loss for long-term gain was basically Maul's plan there. And, well, it didn't work out. And lots of Mandalorians died and others ended up captured. So, yeah, as I say, this isn't a great plan from Maul's perspective, but it doesn't even work out at all because the Republic wins. He doesn't manage to kill Anakin or anyone, and he ends up captured. Well, maybe not captured for long, but he does end up captured. When Bo-Katan does go to get Obi-Wan and Anakin, she tells them that Maul has been destroying her people, which we never see any evidence of. In fact, the only evidence of any oppression we see in that entire arc is when the clones are oppressing the people of Mandalore. Which, that's not Maul's fault. I mean, it kind of is, but, it's very much more Bo-Katan's fault than it is Maul's fault. And also, not something that hadn't happened yet. The only previous evidence we really see is that the T-aliens are on Mandalore. The T-aliens from the Season 3 arc. And, like I think I pointed out in the Almec video, they were not trying to cause deaths on Mandalore. They wanted to just basically make a profit. An excessive profit, which isn't good. They're not oppressing the people of Mandalore. And given that they're public knowledge, or at least more public knowledge, if they do fuck up, Maul's going to be coming down the back of their door. Well, not Maul, but the Mandalorians are going to be coming down and bashing down their door. And they'll be able to do that a lot easier, and the T-aliens would know that. So I don't think that they're really all that bad a thing, which is admittedly the implication. It's supposed to be that they are indicating that Almec is doing all of his back to his old bad tricks and whatnot from when he was Prime Minister. But they don't seem to, I don't know, it doesn't add up to me that Maul is oppressing the people of Mandalore. We do not see any evidence of it at all, anywhere. Every Mandalorian that is not with Bo-Katan seems to be fully loyal to Maul, or we don't see any knowledge of how they're acting or treating anything. So yeah, I don't buy that they're being disloyal to Maul, or rather that Maul is oppressing them. And yeah, Bo-Katan is a liar, so I don't trust her either. Again, more on that in Bo-Katan's video. Maul's plan during the Siege of Mandalore seems very much to be, after the initial wave of attacks happens, drop into the sewers and keep slowly ambushing and biting off the Republic army, as in hit-and-run style guerrilla warfare attacks, which were going quite well. And it's only really once Maul basically gives up on that tactic and goes for more of an all-out war, because he presumably had underestimated how many of the clones were left, or Maul had just drawn tired of the hit-and-run style and chose to go for a more all-out war and try and take Ahsoka because it was taking too long, and their plan was and he needed to get Ahsoka quickly so that they could get to Anakin and kill him. Because again, Anakin was not a part of this, who was fairly key to his goals in the Siege of Mandalore, was being able to kill Anakin. And when Anakin wasn't here and he realized, oh shit, the timeline's shorter than I realized, that is when he goes for the more all-out assault and gives up on his much more slow strategic guerrilla warfare, which was likely to win. So it's because of, again, he's trying to take down the Empire, or at least triple the Empire before it even starts, which is a good thing for him to be doing. He needs to kick it off. He needs to do it quickly. He needs to do it now. And he's not really in a position where doing it now is a feasible option, which is where it all starts to fall apart for him. We also see here that Maul has told Almec a lot about his plans, about his desires, which is why he has Saxon kill him. Well, of course, having Saxon kill the Prime Minister of Mandalore is not a great look for Maul. It does show that Maul cared to talk to Almec. Almec was not just someone who only knew what they needed to. Almec clearly knew more than was necessary for him, especially as he's the leader of the people of Mandalore, not the leader of the warriors of Mandalore. So his war plans did not need to really be talked about with Almec. But no, he entrusted Almec with extra information. He talked with Almec. Almec knew things. So Maul talked to Almec a lot. And as I said, Almec is a good person to lead Mandalore. Not the greatest, of course, but he's not a bad person, for sure. Then, as they're about to rise up and go to the war for proper, Maul promises them a true death in battle. If they die, they will die as warriors, which is what the Mandalorian people want and desire. And Maul promises them that they will get to that. If they do not, they will either win or they will die fighting, as is the Mandalorian way. And, well, it doesn't end like that. And later on, when Saxon calls him out for aid at the end of the Siege of Mandalore, Maul just tells him to die well, showing that he's not going to help him win the war, as he's trying to flee himself. As the Siege of Mandalore is falling apart on Maul, that he does sort of become less caring about the people of Mandalore, as it becomes clear that he won't be able to win it. He's just sort of tries to leave. But also, what I'd like to point out is that Maul's plan to try and convince Ahsoka to join up with him, while not his primary objective in that would have results in her saying, okay, I'm calling off this war, we shall now go and fight the Empire together. Now, of course, that doesn't end up working, but if it had succeeded, it would have stopped the war. So, hey, almost a good job there, Maul. Even though it was unintentional. But yes, all in all, like I said, I don't think Maul was that bad a ruler of Mandalore. He is shown to have the loyalty of the Mandalorians to their core, like Rook Cass especially, as she mentions in Shadow Lord, is loyal to a fault to Maul, and it doesn't get her killed. It should have gotten her killed, but it doesn't. In Shadow Lord, yeah, that's one of my problems with Shadow Lord I've talked about. But anyways, yes. And the Mandalorians as a whole are also loyal to him. They break him out of the prison, which they had no real reason to do. And Maul's shown that he cares about the Mandalorian culture and Mandalorian people, at least enough to learn what they desire, learn what they want. He learned, before he even took over for them, he knew that they were honorable warriors that would value that would honor a challenge to fight to the death for leadership of Mandalore. He knew that they would follow him. He knew later on that they valued victory or death, at least the Death Watch members do. So he promised them victory or death, and then they went out and they fought. And also, we never actually see him doing oppression to the regular people of Mandalore. His plan to take over Mandalore was a fairly minimal plan. It's not entirely clear how long it lasted, but it's reasonable to assume that his assault lasted for around 2 days, I think, if that, honestly. And you could tell me that it all took place in a single day, and I'd believe you. Yeah, the timeline in the Clone Wars is not great. The larger timeline is complete shit. But even within the some of the arcs, like this one, that one, the timeline doesn't quite make sense. It feels like on one hand, the attacks are supposed to be going on for a few weeks almost, as Maul's, that's building up and building up and building up. But on the other hand, we see them just get taken out very quickly. I don't know. I feel like it's supposed to take place over maybe a day or two, is the actual intended timeline. Anyways, yes, where was I? Yeah, so that was a relatively short period of minor oppression to the people, which he then released the pressure on very quickly as part of his plan. And since then, we've seen no evidence of any oppression. Bo-Katan claims there's oppression, but like I say, I don't trust her, to be honest in that, so I'm not taking her word on it. And that's really it as far as the bad parts of Maul's rule. He plants Almec in charge, who, like I say, isn't the greatest ruler, but he is someone who I think legitimately wants to do good by the people of Mandalore. Even if he wants to be the one in charge of Mandalore. But he still wants to do right by them. He doesn't want to cause harm to them. And, well, yeah. Also, I've just sort of tossed this in here at the end because I don't really want to make a full video on it, but Star Wars Visions, The Ninth Jedi, whatever the hell that show is called, it exists. I watched the first 5 episodes last night, and I don't care about it. I don't want to. I'm probably not going to finish it. There's some interesting things in there, but as a whole, I just feel apathy to the show, which I didn't want to. I wanted to like it, but I just didn't care at all. I don't know. The first Ninth Jedi episode from Vision Season 1 was so good, but then they just kind of dropped the ball with it ever since then. The one from Vision Season 3 was rather meh, and the show is just a nothing burger. I feel like it would have been much better if they just cut the episodes in half. I don't know. Anyways, up next is going to be my video on the Saxons, Imperial Governors of Mandalore. I'm going to try and get that one out in August sometime, and then the Bo-Katan video will be in September. And then if I can squeeze out, there'll be a Corky video later in September, before the Clone Wars Day video on October 3rd. And, yeah, Nid Swarm signing off.